Welcome to this video on where we're going to be implementing row level security within inside our Supabase project, and of course using FlutterFlow as the front end application. Security is super important and we should always take it seriously. We don't want anybody to come along and manipulate our data, so we've made enhancements to our Supabase project to hopefully stop that from happening. This is a full beginner's walkthrough on implementing row level security. You'll certainly learn something from this video if it's something that's new to you and you're not super familiar with the concepts. There's a great example in FlutterFlow that you're going to be able to put together as well. I'll walk you through the kind of construction of that as well in this particular sort of episode. And the key thing is, if you are looking to get started with that, please do clone the project using the link in the description. That'll get you to pretty much most of the UI, and then we can focus on the interesting stuff on implementing various features within inside the application. So hopefully you're sitting comfortably. Let's get cracking and let's move on with the video. So if you see my very first video in terms of setting up Supabase authentication, you would have ended up with something very, very similar to this. I've made a couple of changes, but generally it has the login screen and of course it has the create account screen. Okay, so that should be exactly how it was. You authenticate against Supabase with inside FlutterFlow and you end up being then redirected to a home page which just had like a FlutterFlow logo on. Now I've taken that project, I've made some changes to it to support all of the content within inside this video. So let me show you more about what we're going to build in this particular episode. So here we are then with the sample project running within inside FlutterFlow itself. Now please note, this is not going to win any awards. You're here for the detail, but I put this together really just as a very, very quick sample of how row level security can help us and restrict access to the data actually at the database level. Okay, so if your API was ever compromised, then you'll find that you should be safe with the data actually at the server level, that nobody's going to come along, invoke your API and make changes to your data. We don't want that to happen. So this is what row level security is about. It's kind of restricting the access and the updates to particular rows within inside your database. So this particular sample application is a really, really simple application in terms of what it's there to do. It's going to allow me to create blog posts, which I author myself. I don't want anybody making changes to that. I want to be able to delete my own posts. I don't want anybody else to delete those. And I also want to be able to view all the posts that everybody else has created. So I'm going to have a number of different accounts where I'm going to be able to log into this application, and I'm just going to see the content which is specific to my own account. Okay, so that's super important. So by using row level security, we can ensure that the integrity of our application remains true to exactly what we're looking to deliver to our users. Okay, so without further ado, let's now go into the actual implementation. Let's go into Supabase and let's see how this is all implemented. So here we are then in Supabase. I've got a very, very simple project already set up. If you want to get to this particular stage, please go and have a look at my other video on Supabase authentication, because it will get you right to where we are right now. The only difference, of course, is in this particular project, I've already created the table, which is going to contain our blog posts. Okay, so if I just move over to the table editor and click on posts, you can see here that I've got this very, very straightforward table. I'm going to bring up a slide in just a second, which will show you the actual columns that I actually got selected. But if I go to the database, go to tables, if I just edit that here, you can see here that it's just called posts. There's some columns that I've kind of got set up here with various different sort of types. I've got a couple of default values in here as well. And just down here, I've turned off these values from being is nullable. Okay, so just make sure you go into the author user ID and just turn off those to be non-nullable. But other than that, it's a pretty simple table that's been created. And you'll see here that I've actually got row level security turned off at this moment in time. So what that basically means is that our table is open to any requests at all. There's no permissions or anything like that's been set on the actual table itself. So that's obviously quite dangerous in our case, because we want to make sure that we lock our table down. So we'll go through row level security very, very shortly, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a basic update to kind of how the table is constructed. So let's actually have a quick look at the slide there, just to give you a quick preview of all of the fields that's actually in that table. So here is a very quick slide which shows you our fields within inside our database. Okay, we've got created at, which is there by default. We've got an ID in there as well, which is going to be unique to each row that's within inside our database. Title is something that we've added, which will just contain the post of the actual blog post title, and we've got description as well. These are just text-based fields. Okay, the one called active is really just to denote whether a post is active or not. It's just a Boolean type there, so it's either going to be true or false. The author user ID, this is going to be a very key field for us, okay, because it's going to be this field that's actually going to contain the user ID, of course, of the user who's actually creating and updating and all that kind of stuff, that particular row. We're going to be using this for our row level security very shortly. And comments is one, not really for this particular video, but I've put that in here for the future, and this will allow us to track how many comments will be against a post as well. So we'll come back to that in a future video. So that's just a very quick slide there on the fields that are in our database, just in case you want to recreate that yourself. So here we are then back in FlutterFlow. If you are following along with this particular video, please do clone the project. That's the link in the description, and this is what you'll end up with. Okay, you need to have set up your Supabase project first as well, as per the video which talks about the Supabase authentication. So please do go and follow that video. The link is in the description. Once you're cloned and you've got this project up and running, you're going to need to go to the actual cog here, and you're going to need to move down to the Supabase option here, and this is where you're going to want to put in your API URL and your anonymous key, and they can be found within Supabase. So let's go to Supabase now and pick those up. So you're going to want to go to Supabase. This is the home page of the project. Move down to the cog itself, and then move over to the API option, and your URL can be found here. So just simply copy that, and then you can paste that into that particular field within inside FlutterFlow. And then your anonymous key, you're going to want to copy that, and you're going to want to come back over to FlutterFlow and of course paste it into the anonymous key section. Once you've done that, you're going to want to then click on the get schema option, and what will happen is it'll make a call out to Supabase. It will pull in the schema, pretty much the post table that we've created, and then all of the details here. So you're kind of looking for something in your project which looks very similar to this here. So if you follow the setup of the table, that's what you should get with inside your project. Once you've done that, you're good to go. So let's now move back into the sort of the widget tree, and let's now start quickly building some parts of our application which we can test some of this stuff out. So I just fired this project up with inside test mode, and you can see how this is currently set up. We've got the, I'm already logged in. So of course, if you're not logged in, please do log in. And once you log in, you should be presented with your email address. This actually at the top there. Okay. Now, if you've not created your user account, please make sure you also create your user account on the first screen. So I've got that up there. Of course, I can see who I am. So that's good. So I'm all authenticated, but pretty well much the application doesn't do a lot else. If I click on the create button, I try creating, it wouldn't work because there's no functionality behind it. I can view all the posts. Well, there's nothing sort of pulling anything in from Supabase at this point. We'll set that up in just a second, and pretty well much we can't sort of edit or delete or do anything of that sort of magic. So what we're going to do is we're just going to work on this a little bit here. We're just going to pull the post down from Supabase. So let's move back over to FlutterFlow and do that now. So with inside the actual home page itself, if we move down to the kind of the list view that we've got here, this is what we're going to need to do. So with that selected, move over to this option here called backend query, say add backend query, and you want to choose your query type. Now this is going to be a Supabase query. Okay, so choose Supabase. On the table, it's going to be post. It's the only table that we've got with inside our project. We're going to say the list of rows, but this is where we're going to need to add a filter in, because we're going to want to filter these on the user ID. So this is me who's logged in. So just choose the add filter option. Within the field name, just choose the author user ID, okay? If I just scroll down here, we're going to say the relation is going to be equal to, and we're going to choose a little selector here, and then the value is going to come from the authenticated user. So of course, this is the great thing about FlutterFlow, is that it has these options available to us. So we can just choose authenticated user, and we want to choose this one here called user ID. So just choose user ID, and that is all that we need to do there. And then we just want to do some ordering as well. So what we're going to do quite simply is that the most recent post is going to be at the top of the list. Okay, so choose add order. We're going to just scroll down here. We're going to say table field name. We're going to choose the created at. So this is something that as soon as you actually create a post with inside the Supabase database, it will get the created at timestamp straight away. And of course, we want to keep the order as decreasing. There's also increase, and of course, if you want to get the oldest to start off with to obviously to the newest, we'll go top to bottom. But we want to do decreasing, so it's going to be the kind of the newest at the top down to the oldest at the bottom. just hit confirm and just hit confirm once again. And what you'll see here is you'll see this list kind of get sort of built. There's a couple of ghosted entries in here, but this is really just a preview with inside FlutterFlow that tells you that this has actually got a back-end query. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to choose this particular title field as the title of our blog post, and that's really straightforward. You just make sure that's selected, go to the text option up here. It's the posts row, okay, so it's going to be every one of the post rows that are actually within inside the list view, it gives us a reference to that. So we just want to choose the title so it knows that's what we're looking for, and that's all that we need to do. So quite simply now, if I now run this up, it's not going to show anything because I've got no posts in there, but one thing's for sure is that it will actually then fire the query up, and then it will show any posts that we've got in there that we've created. But of course, what we're going to do now is move on to actually creating the actual blog post itself. So let's go and configure that with inside FlutterFlow. So our application is currently configured that when we actually hit this particular option here, it's going to then navigate us to the page, which is going to then allow us to create the post. So this is going to bring up this create a blog post page. And this page is really straightforward. Okay, it's just got some widget structure down here. It's really quite self-explanatory. But the key thing is we've got a couple of sort of fields that are actually on our application. One is a title text field and one is a description. The description is kind of like a multi-row particular field for us. So just a couple of fields, and we've got this create post option at the bottom here that's got no logic behind it. So let's go and do that now. We want to be able to create the post. We're going to want to pass these values into Supabase, insert the record in our database, and so that can be done really easy. So just choose the create post option just here, move over to the actions here, open up the action flow editor, and it's an on tap event. Of course, we just want to do it as soon as we hit the tap, we just want to do that. So just hit the add action, and the first thing that we're going to want to do, and for this example, really just insert the record straight away. Of course, if you're building out this as a full application, you're going to want to do some form validation. You're going to want to make sure that the user has actually keyed in these details. But for simplicity, we're just going to insert the record straight away. Okay, so just do a search for Supabase, and then you've got this option called insert row. So just choose insert row. Now, some properties come up here that we need to select. The table that we're going to insert is called post because that's the only one that we got. So just choose post. And now we're going to want to actually set the fields. Okay, so choose add field. Now we don't need to worry about ID, but if we choose this particular one, it's going to allow us to choose the fields that we're going to want to set. So the first one that we're going to want to do is title. So just select title. On the value, just choose the selector, and we're going to go down to the widget state. So this is going to make a reference to the actual title text field. Okay, so choose a widget state. Just choose a title text field here. So we're going to pull the value out of that particular widget. We're going to add another field here. Let's just select this one here. We're going to choose a description, and we're going to choose a selector. We're going to go to widget state, and we're going to choose the description text field. So they're the only widgets that we've actually got on the screen at this moment in time. We haven't got the active field, but we're not really worried too much about that. But what we'll do is we're going to set it here anyway. So just go to add field, and then go to the actual option here and go to active. We're just going to set the value to true by default, so we know it's always going to be active at this particular stage. Just choose this. This is where we now need to also select another field on here as well. So we're going to set this one called author user ID. Okay, so just as we did previously, we're going to want to choose the authenticated user, and we're going to want to grab the user ID. So we're just going to store the user ID against every record that gets created within Supabase inside that particular table. Okay, so that's all that we need to do here. Everything else is pretty good, and then we can just for completeness here, I think I've got a little error list it was talking about here. Oh, it's asking about the comments. Let's add that in as well. So let's just choose the comments here to be 0. Just put a value of 0 in. There we go. So that's all good for us. That error's now disappeared. So now we're going to just do one more thing as well. Once we've actually hit the create post option, we're going to want to navigate back to the previous screen. Okay, so just press the little plus here, hit add action, and we're just going to want to close the dialog drawer. So we're just going to literally just close that screen that pops up. Okay, that's all that we need to do. So hit close and we should be good. Now, if I quickly now run this up in test mode, we should successfully be able to create an actual post. Let's do that now. So here we are in the running application. Let's hit the create blog post option. Up pops our screen. So I'm just going to put test title 1 in here. And I'm just going to put this is a test post, just like that. Hit the create post, and what we'll see probably is that the actual post gets displayed there, which is perfect for us. Test title 1, that's all looking really good. If I go to view all posts, we won't see anything here, but we can add that in just a moment. But pretty well much we can see that the post that we've got created for us is there inside the running app. Let's go and quickly configure this particular page now and get that all set up for ourselves. So we are then back in the FlutterFlow widget tree. Let's choose the view all post page here, and let's move down to the blog post all list view here. So just choose that, and we're going to want to do the same thing as we did before, but with a slight difference. Okay, so go to backend query, choose add backend query, select this, choose the Supabase query here, go to the table, select posts, and we don't want to add any filtering in whatsoever here. Choose the add order, and we just want to move this down to created at, and of course we're going to stay in the decreasing view. So just hit confirm, and then hit confirm again, and just very simply on here, let's now map these to the actual fields themselves. So just choose the title, choose the selector, go to the post row, choose the actual title itself and the description. Let's do the same thing as well. Just choose that and the description. Go here and choose description there. So that's pretty well much everything that we need. So what that will now do, if we go back into test mode, we can quickly see now that if I just do a quick instant reload, we should be able to then see all of those posts that would now be present in that particular table. So what we're going to see is basically the same as what we've got, but of course if any additional users are logging into this particular application, they'll be able to see all of the posts as being posted. So there it is, very simply it says this is a test post. So that's everything set up there. So before we go any further, let's have a little think about what we are trying to achieve here. So far what we've done is we've configured our project to basically just filter on the user ID of the records that's being created. Okay, so you're going to think to yourself, well, what is different about that? Well, that's great. Okay, we're filtering. But what happens though if somebody compromises our API? What happens if somebody makes a call into the Supabase API, which really all that FlutterFlow is doing? It's just making a call to the Supabase database. It's saying, right, just filter on these records, bring them back. It's not particularly safe. So of course, if you was running this as a web project and you was calling into Supabase itself, you could actually go to the developer tools of your Google Chrome browser. You can actually pull out the URL that is being called, the website address that's being called into Supabase, and you could actually manipulate and you can actually return back the data. You wouldn't actually be filtering on the user that is actually making the request. Okay, so that's why row level security is really important. So as we've seen so far, I logged in earlier as the digital pro at outlook.com. I created my blog post. That's great. I can see my blog post because I'm filtering on it. If I type in here number 2, so I have another account called the Digital Pro 2 at outlook.com. It's not one that I use, but it's just one I've used for this particular purpose. If I just sign in here, you can see now that I don't have no blog posts. I've not created anything myself. If I go to view all posts, of course, I'm going to see them all. So let's have a quick look at what is actually happening with inside the web browser, how it's making that call in and how it's identifying me actually at the Supabase level, because we're going to have to hook onto that and we're going to have to just check who we are so we can match up on the records that we've actually got stored. So let's just have a little look behind the scenes at what Google Chrome is actually doing. So what I've done is I pressed F5 with the running application. This is the view all posts screen, okay? And you can see here that it's I've got the network tab is selected. I've selected this one called Fetch XHER here, and you can see here these are the requests that's being made. It's the top one that I'm kind of interested in because it's this one is the view all post request. Okay, so just making a call into our table. You can see it says post where this, which is our table. It's just doing a select, and what it's doing is it's doing ordering by the created at. Remember we said it to be descending earlier, so it's going to always bring back the newest one at the top here. So it's making that sort of URL call into Supabase, and you can see here that this is the actual full URL that it's actually calling here. And if you remember back when we did the setup of the project, that is the API URL of our project. Okay, so that's how it kind of uniquely kind of identifies it. If I scroll down though, there's something that's quite important actually. And that is this particular this authorization. Okay, you can see here that we've got what, if people aren't really familiar with kind of sort of like sort of authorization requests or anything like that, this just looks like a load of gobbledygook. But actually behind the scenes, this is actually like an encoded key which we can actually interrogate and we can actually pull out details from. That doesn't mean anything to you here, but what I'll do is I'll show you what that actually looks like actually within inside a slide in just a moment. Okay, I'm going to just decipher it and I'm going to show you what it actually contains. Now, it doesn't contain anything that is super secure, but what it does do, it contains our user ID, it contains our email address and some other basic details. Okay, but what we can do is we can actually take receipt of this within inside a Supabase itself. We can pull out details of it and then we can perform some checks, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, this is always going to be different every time somebody is actually logging into our application. This token is going to have a short lifespan. Okay, it's not going to stick around for very long, but what it's going to do is it's going to be quite unique to the session that we're actually running our actual application. Okay, so we know that it's going to be very unlikely that somebody is going to be able to compromise this token here and then reuse it. Of course, you never can say never, because it really depends if somebody's kind of sniffing the wires and all this kind of stuff of your network, but generally it's always going to be pretty unique. And it's always going to be part of the session of your running application. And it's only, as I said, it's just got a short lifespan, okay? And it will just get refreshed by the system. There'll be a new token that will keep being issued, but of course it'll be specific to your user account as well. So as I said, let's have a look at that token. Let's decipher it. Let's see what details it contains. And then we'll take you into Supabase to see how we can actually use that token to make sure that we keep our application secure. So let's go and do that now. So as you can see on screen, what I've done is I've deciphered that token. I've used a fantastic website called jwt.io, and I've literally just taken that load of gobbledygook string that you actually saw inside Google Chrome, and I pasted it in there and I just decoded it, and this is the information that is presented. Okay, so you can see here that I've got my email address in there, which you can see is the digitalpro@outlook.com. That's a great way if you're looking to kind of check on an email, and you wanted to use that as your row level security identifier. But actually what we're really interested in though is that user ID, and you can see here I've put a big whopping great arrow to it because this is really, really important to us. So what we can actually do with this token is with inside Supabase, we can read that token, we can pull out this particular value, and then we can match that with the user ID that we've associated with our creating of the blog post that you saw earlier. So when we actually went into sort of FlutterFlow and we went into the actual insert of the record, we actually selected the authenticated user ID, and we stored that within inside our database. That is the same value, so that is me. Okay, so what we can then do is we can then go into Supabase, as I said, we can then check and just cross-reference that and say, does that user ID match that particular value? And if it does, then everything is good. So which means that record then can be returned, or we can manipulate it or something like that. Okay, so that's really the only detail that you need to actually know with this actual web token, this exchange between Supabase and FlutterFlow. Okay, so let's now have a look now with inside Supabase, and let's see how that particular token, that sub word there we've got here, and how that can be actually used with inside Supabase itself. So let's go and do that now. So here I am back in Supabase, and I've gone to the post table, and this is that single record that I've actually just created earlier. And as you can see here, I've got the user ID, which is associated with this record. So if you had seen that previously in that token that I just showed you on that slide, this is the user ID of my account. Okay, so we know that we're getting that associated with our record, which is great. But because our database is currently unrestricted, we've got no row level security, then we're pretty well much open to basically anonymous access. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do now, let's now lock down our database and let's actually turn on row level security. Okay, so the way that we can do that is we've gone to the table here, we've got this option up, it says RLS is not enabled. So Supabase does a fantastic job of warning you or everywhere you go if you haven't got RLS enabled. So just choose that here, and you'll see here that it says disabled on this particular table. We can just simply say enable RLS, and you can either do it in here, or you can actually do it into the table definition when you go to edit all of the columns and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to say enable RLS, and we're just going to say confirm, and that's it. Okay, but then you're going to think, well, okay, well, what difference does that make? Okay, now if I go back into to FlutterFlow, okay, and you can see here, this is my running applications I had previously. If I just now do an instant reload, you should find that this will disappear from screen. Okay, so if I just say instant reload, there it is, my blog post is now disappeared. If I now go into view all posts, there's none in there either. Okay, so I've completely locked up my data. My database is really just holding on to that data now. It's just not serving it up because I've not given Supabase any permission whatsoever to issue this data back to my front end. Okay, so let's now go back into Supabase and let's now sort that one out. So here we are then back in Supabase, and on the left hand side I've got the actual authentication option selected, and I've got policies here on the left hand side selected, and here is the actual table name that we got here, and we got RLS enabled, so we've got row level security enabled, but we've got no policies. Okay, we're not giving any information to Supabase at all about opening up our data to the outside world. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do, and this is a good demonstrator here, is we're going to want to kind of think about our application a little bit. Okay, so we've got blog posts. Okay, now generally blog posts are quite public. Okay, pretty well much anonymous websites can see blog posts. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that we say, actually, for read-only access to view all of those blog posts, okay, we can actually just open that up to the outside world, so we don't have to be very restrictive about it. Okay, so the way that we can do that is if we just go over to where it says new policy, if we just choose new policy, and we've got this option that come up. Now we're not going to worry about these particular templates because we want to do everything from scratch in this particular video, but we're going to choose on this option here to create a policy from absolute scratch. Okay, so let's choose that, and then we've got this wonderful kind of screen that pops up that gives us now this ability to, at a more granular level, handle how we're going to handle our data, whether we're doing a kind of a select, like a read of our data. What about when we're doing an insert or an update or a delete? Okay, so we can, at a very granular level, decide how we want to open up our data to the outside world. Now, as I said, from a select perspective, so to basically provide all blog posts to everybody, what we can do is we can choose a select option. Okay, we're just going to choose select, and quite simply I'm just going to return true here, because what this using expression is doing is it's performing an evaluation of an expression, and if the evaluation returns a true, then the select will be fine. It's going to return all of the data back. If it's false for any reason, it's not going to return anything. So if I was just to change that to false now, we'll be right in the same situation as we are now. We won't be returning any data. So just make sure that you put true for select, because we're going to open our data for anonymous access. Okay, and then in the policy name, we can just put something in here, say enable read-only access to all sort of blog posts, something like that, as just a description. Now, if I now hit the review option just down here, choose review, it gives us this read-only view here where it's just giving us this command. Okay, so if you're not a developer or anything like that, then if you watch any of my previous videos, I always say that actually always think of this as configuration, not programming. If you're not a programmer, think of it as configuration. And really what this is doing is this is just going to fire a particular command at Supabase to actually create this policy for us. Okay, you don't need to worry about the detail, but just consider it's going to get done. If I say save policy, it says policy successfully saved at the top there, so we should be good. So what will happen now, if I go back into FlutterFlow, and I just do an instant reload on my project, we should be back right where we were. We should see the data come back, okay, which we do. So we can see my post here, which is great. If I go to view all posts, we can see that. That's great. So we've got read-only access now. Now, if I was to try creating a blog post, well, it will actually just fail when I try creating it, okay? So we don't want to attempt that here, but we need to describe to our policy how we want to actually handle that situation. So we're all good. Let's move now back into Supabase and let's go one step further now, and let's now just create some additional policies to allow us to handle the insert of our records. Let's go and do that now. So here we are, they're back in Supabase and we're back on the policy screen. Let's create a new policy that's going to allow us to insert a row into our database. Okay, so if I click on new policy up here, we're going to go back down to here to create the policy from scratch. Here we are now. Let's put a policy name in. Okay, so I've got one here in the clipboard. Enable post insert for users based on their user ID. Okay, so the allowed operation that we're going to select here is going to be an insert, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to insert a record into our database. Now I'm going to put an expression in here and then I'll walk you through it. So please don't get too alarmed by it, but I'll talk you through what each bit means. So here's the expression all pasted in. Okay, and let me explain what it's doing. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for a true or false. Okay, and what we're trying to do here, we're trying to match something on the left with the right. Okay, so on the left we have this helper function. Okay, this is something that is local to Supabase for us. It enables us to get hold of the JWT token. This is that kind of encoded token that we saw previously. Now what it's doing is it's looking for the term sub. Now if you remember, the sub within inside that token was the user ID that is being passed into this part of that token being passed into Supabase. Okay, so that's what we're looking for, and we know it's text. Okay, so this is quite straightforward. It's just pulling that out for us. We're getting hold of that sub, that user ID, and then what we're doing is we're then saying, is it equal to then the author underscore user ID? So this is the database record that is being inserted within inside the Supabase database. Okay, now we know that when we create a record, as you saw in FlutterFlow, we're actually passing the author user ID, the authenticated user ID, as part of the record into Supabase, so we know that we're going to get that passed in, and that's of course going to be text. And really what this little equals is doing in the middle is just saying, have we got a match? Is it true? Is it false? If it's true, great, it returns true, and we know that we can insert the record. Of course, if it's false, it's not going to let it happen. Okay, which is what we would see now if we tried creating that record. But now we've got it on the insert. We can now say review here, and again, as I said before, this is just showing you what it's going to execute on the database. Hit the save policy. Then that's all created successfully for us. So we can now go back into our test mode of our project. Let's now try creating a record to see if it works for us. So here we are with the application in run mode. Let's go to create a brand new blog post. Let's just do test title 2, test post 2, hit create posts. And that's brilliant. It looks like everything is working for us. That rule does appear to be working because we can now actually insert a record, which is fantastic. Let's now move over to Supabase and let's add the remaining policy in for the actual update. And we also need to do one for the delete as well. So let's go and do that now. So here we are back in the policies section within inside Supabase. Let's create a brand new policy. Let's go to the policy from scratch, and this time we're going to do the delete. I'm just going to paste some words in here. Okay, so enable post delete for users based on their user ID. Now the good thing is that the actual rule that we've actually got on the using expression is exactly the same, so I'm going to put that expression in there now. Okay, so there's the exact same expression, nothing different at all. So we can just hit the review here and we can just hit save policy. So we just need to implement the policy for the update now. So click on the new policy, click on the for customization option. I'm just going to paste the name in there. Enable post update for users based on their user ID. Just choose update and you'll see here that for updates we need to include the expression in both of these, and you'll be pleased to know it's exactly the same expression as we had before. So I'm just going to paste that in. So there it is, I've added that in there. So let's hit the little review option, hit save policy, and fingers crossed that all gets saved for us. But before we test this out, we're going to need to make some changes to our FlutterFlow application because we actually have not implemented the update functionality just yet, or even delete for that matter. So let's go and make those changes now within inside our FlutterFlow project. So here we are then back in FlutterFlow. So let's now start hooking up our pages. So here we've got the little edit options. So we've already got an update, a blog, a post page already created for us. So we just need to hook that to that particular page. So let's go to the actual option here to actually edit the post. Click on the action flow editor, and we're just going to simply add an action on here, and we're going to navigate to, and we're going to choose the update a blog post page. Now the actual page that we've got created is set a input parameter. Okay, so we're going to pass the actual post record actually to that actual page itself. So there's the row itself. So just choose the Supabase row, just hit confirm, and we're going to basically pass that to the page, which is then going to pick it up. We're then going to bind that then to the actual widgets on the screen. So let's go and do that now. So that's all hooked up for us. In fact, yeah, that's what we need to do. Let's then go into that particular page itself, the update blog post page, and let's now set this up. So we know that we're going to come in with the Supabase row. So let's choose the title text field first. Let's go down here to the initial value, just select that. We're going to choose post. We're going to choose a Supabase row of just title, just hit confirm. We also need to do the same thing for the description. So just choose that, choose a selector, go to post, choose the actual row of description there, the actual field, hit confirm. So that's good for us. And then of course, we now need to do the actual update option as well. So let's click on the open. Let's just, we've already got to navigate back there. So just hit the little plus, add action, just move this one up by choosing the arrow. And then what we're going to do is we're then going to go to the Supabase option. So let's go, just type in Supabase here. Let's go to update row. We're going to choose the actual table. It's going to be posts. And then we're going to want to make sure that the row that we're actually updating is based on the ID of the row that's passed into the actual page. Okay, so just choose matching rows, hit the add filter. Where it says field name, choose ID, choose the relation as equal to. So we're going to see if the ID is then equal to then the actual, the page parameter post. And then we're going to go here and actually choose the ID. So we're just making sure that the any update that we now do on here matches the ID of the row that we actually passed in the first place. Just hit confirm, and then of course we now need to set the actual fields though. So we're just going to choose add fields down here where it says ID. Let's just move this down a little bit. Let's actually choose the title, and we're going to click on the selector for the value, and we're going to go down to the widget state, and we're going to choose the title text field. We also now need to do the same thing for the description. So just choose add field, just move this down again, just go to field, go to description, move that down here, just choose a selector, and we're going to choose the widget state here as the description text field. So we're just really just grabbing the text values from the actual fields that's on the actual screen itself, on the actual page, and then we're just making sure that, oh, it's been zoomed in there, and then we're just going to make sure that we then rewrite those back to the actual Supabase database. So that's all that we need to do. So that's good. Just hit close. Yep, navigate. That's good. We just hit close there. So that's pretty well much good. That's the update page actually created now. So let's now go and run this now, and let's just make sure that we get our. Oh, in fact, before we do that, let's quickly do the actual delete as well. Why not? We can do that here in one hit. So let's choose the delete post button there. Let's go up to the actual action itself, open up the action flow editor. Now it's a non-tap event. Let's hit add action. And of course, we've got the first action that's up here. We're just going to do a search for Supabase again. Let's choose a delete row this time. We know that the table is going to be posts, and we're going to want to match on the specific row. Okay, so just choose the match rows, hit add filter, and we're just going to choose the field name as ID. So it's the ID of the actual record. We want to say that it's equal to, and then we're going to choose the value, and it's going to be the actual post row. So we know the row that we're in. We're just going to choose that and choose ID. So again, we're looking for the ID match, and we should be good. So that's that. And then one thing we also need to do is once we actually delete, we're actually going to want to force a refresh. Okay, so hit the add action, and then of course at this point we're just going to want to refresh the database request. So just type in refresh there, choose refresh database, and we then need to choose the my blog post list view. Just choose that, and we should be good to go. Now we should be good now to then fire this now quickly up into the run mode, and let's see if those functions work. So here we go then back in run mode. I think I've realized actually a bit of a mistake actually. I haven't actually put a refresh on here to actually refresh the list view. So what we'll do the update and we won't actually see it take effect, but rest of the whole, we can refresh the page and it will do it. So if I just hit that, choose say number 3, do that, hit update. And yeah, as I expected, it looks like it hasn't worked, but if I actually just refresh the page quickly, you'll see that actually that now will show test title 3. Just need to go into this little option here and just do a refresh of the database, just as we did in the other action on the delete. If I now try deleting though, let's try deleting this one out of here. It's then gone. So we've got the refresh working for ourselves there. So everything is looking really, really good. That's perfect for us. Of course, now if I was to now log out of the application and now sign in, I should see a different set. So let's just sign out. So let's just sign in as the other account. Hit sign in, and you'll see there I've got nothing. Just hit the test. I'll just say test article 1, or sorry 2. Just put some gobbledygook in there. Hit create post. And then if I just do a little refresh, there we go. There's our article there. And of course we can go in here now and we can further update this as well. So let's just put 3, hit the update, and then just do a little refresh on the page again. And you can see now that that's now been updated. Now, if I go to view all posts, of course, you're now going to see both articles, both from my other account and from this account. So it looks like all of our row level security is working pretty good. It means that now we've locked our application down to be using the token to validate who I actually am. And then, of course, I can then carry out all of the functions of our application. So there you go. That is a wrap for this particular video. Hopefully you've learned something there regarding Supabase and row level security. There's multiple different ways of implementing the policies and all that kind of stuff inside Supabase. And in future videos on my channel, I'll also cover some more advanced topics around row level security as well. And of course, if you haven't seen my full series on building a goals tracking app, that's a 16-part videos on building an application with inside FlutterFlow. And that also uses row level security as well with inside Supabase. So please do go and check out that series if you are looking to get started on building applications. As always, please do like the video. Please do subscribe to my channel if you love these type of walkthrough videos. Hopefully you found them useful. And until the next one, I'll see you soon.